Welcome to today's KM World Roundtable webinar, brought to you by SearchBlox Software Inc., eGain, and Lucy. I'm Mary D. Ojala, Conference Program Director, Information Today Inc. I will be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled The Top Trends in KM for 2022. Before we get started, I want to explain how you can be a part of this broadcast. There will be a question and answer session, so if you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the submit button. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been selected during the show, you will receive an email response to it within a few days. Plus, all viewers will be entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card just for viewing today's webinar. And now to introduce our speakers for today. John Lewis, Chief Knowledge Officer, SearchBlox Software Inc. Sam Hahn, Technology Evangelist eGain. Scott Littman, Managing Partner, Lucy. And now, let me pass the event over to John Lewis, Chief Knowledge Officer, SearchBlox Software Inc. Go ahead, John.
Okay, I'm John Lewis with SearchBlox, and it's my pleasure today to talk to you about the top trends in KM for 2022, specifically around increased findability through automatically fixing content before searching and gaining insights into content gaps after searching. Before we jump in, I had a quick question for you. What's the most used hyperlink on the internet? Have you ever thought about that? The answer is the back button. Well, we want people to engage with our content, not bounce out of our website. So why do they hit the back button? Here's some of the top reasons. Could be that the page is just loading too slow, or that the content's not engaging, or the look and feel's not engaging. And we know these are key factors and spend a lot of energy on design and navigation and accessibility. But we're also seeing that another key reason that end users leave is due to an inability to search and find answers. Let's face it, many people found our website using search, and they expect to be able to continue their search journey on our website. That brings us to a quick slide about who we are. SearchBlox has been providing secure enterprise search solutions since 2003, with over 600 customers that tend to focus in the financial services, healthcare, government, and technology sectors. We're listed in the KM World 100 companies that matter most in knowledge management, also listed in the KM World AI Top 50 companies. With Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Insight Engines, we earned an honorable mention last year, and also acknowledged by IDC for conversational AI technologies. And here's a quick look at some of our customers in the financial services, healthcare, government, and technology sectors. Okay, with that, here's what we're seeing with end user expectations. End users today are very technology savvy with high expectations when it comes to search. They want search results that are relevant, like Google's search results, insight-driven, like Amazon's recommendation engine, personalized, like Spotify's personalized on-demand playlist, and voice-activated, like Apple's Hey Siri. And at the same time, businesses want solutions where setup is easy, where security is solid, where support is available, and of course, where search is advanced. Let's take a quick look at each of these expectations. Faster setup translates into faster time to value. Businesses want to have the option to deploy search in their data center or in the cloud. Ingest and search data out of the box with over 300 built-in data connectors, speeding up deployment time. And given some organizations don't have their own KM staff, They may want an option for a fully managed search service. Security. When it comes to security, we find that businesses want to integrate search with their existing authentication and authorization systems to ensure that search results are in line with existing employee access permissions. They want security at the user level, index level, and document level, and also encryption at rest, in transit, and in use, yet still searchable. And as we see in the example image here, personal identifiable information that is not encrypted can open an organization to security risks. And of course, businesses want multiple levels of support, including training, 24/7 platinum level support, option for fully managed services, and fixed price professional services if needed. Okay, that brings us to intelligent search that goes beyond traditional keyword technologies. This requires breaking down the separate activities during search, including providing suggested searches before typing, smart suggested autocomplete for spellings during typing, and sophisticated narrowing options after typing to navigate the search results. Now, the key trends in KM for 2022 are around increased findability by focusing on what happens before and after searching. So let's take a look at these trends of increased findability through natural language processing to automatically fix content before searching, and increased findability through analytics and insights after searching. So how can we automatically fix content before searching? Let's insert another step in the standard search engine ingestion process. Now we can use natural language processing to read each document on the way in and without changing the original content, to provide additional processing to include generation of document titles and descriptions, audio to text, auto tagging, OCR, keyword generation, sentiment analysis, and more. And since some organizations have their own data scientists, this process can be used by customers or third parties to implement custom processing. So let's look at some examples. A lot of internal documents have titles that are missing or use template names or just dates. So when trying to find a document, the search results are either very poor or in some cases, nothing is found. So now we can automatically generate appropriate titles for each document on their way into the search engine. And this is going to greatly improve findability. Our customers say, wow, it would take an army of people to do this manually, given the thousands of documents in their organization. Let's take a look at another example where topic metadata is not usually added to documents by the authors. In this case, we want to know which documents are related more to strategy or systems, which is automatically added. Now, when we search, we not only find related documents, but can begin to drill down into any topic area that we want. So here's one more example. This time we're automatically adding metadata related to the sentiment of each document. That is, overall, it is either positive or negative. So when we search, we not only find related documents, but can begin to drill down into the group of documents based on positive or negative sentiments. The metadata that can be generated for each document now includes title, description, topic, sentiment, keywords, and entity extraction when it finds specific names of organizations, products, people, locations, and even geopolitical economy terms. We hear excited customers tell us they can't do this even with a Watson integration. And this list will continue to grow as AI continues to progress. Now let's turn our attention to the analytics and insights available after searching. Here we get metrics for top searches, search result clicks, suggestions, zero result searches, and featured result clicks. Knowing what people are searching for is important, and knowing when there are no results for their search also tells us where there may be some gaps in our content. Actually, these are pretty standard metrics you would expect to find in any modern search engine. So in 2022, what are some additional search insights that can help us increase findability? These are what I call multidimensional insights. In other words, it's not just about knowing the top searches. This report shows the search queries that received the most number of URL clicks from end users and the average position of the documents that were clicked in the search results list. This report provides a visual way to spot any URLs that could be optimized. It looks at the top total clicks versus the average position in the search results list. So notice in this example, there's a document that's getting a lot of clicks, yet it's usually found on the second page of the search results. This report shows the URLs that received the most clicks from users and the search terms used and the position they were found within the search results. Finally, search trends provides insights into what users are looking for at a particular point in time and also across various timelines. For example, one customer discovered a difference between product searches for weekdays versus weekends, which related to professional versus consumer products and allowed them to make marketing adjustments. And if additional custom insights are needed, customers can use the Tableau integration capability for their unique requirements. Now, how can we use all of these insights to affect findability when searching? Let's take a peek behind the scenes where we can adjust the search relevance tuning. Instead of using just one approach across all documents to solve for relevance, we recognize that relevance is related to specific types of content. That's why we include tuning templates related to common document collections, which you can simply select or create your own. For example, news content is more relevant based on recency, whereas FAQ documents normally include the frequently asked question directly in the title. So title weight is more important here, whereas the relevance for a knowledge base may have a more balanced weight across title, description, body, and the metadata. And after making changes to relevance tuning, there may be some URLs or documents that require manually positioning them higher in the search results list, which is done here by simply clicking and dragging. Okay, this is from SearchBlox standpoint. We've seen an introduction to the standard product suite and also a Search AI suite where we focus today on the pretext NLP capabilities. And for our presentation summary, it's all about improving the search journey with intelligent search, which helps end users make better decisions faster. And our focus today related to 2022 trends in KM was about increased findability through natural language processing to automatically fix content before searching and increased findability through analytics and insights after searching. With that, thank you for your time today. I hope to hear from you. Okay, back to you, Mary D.
Great. Thank you, John. And now let me pass the event to Sam Hahn, Technology Evangelist, eGain.
Thanks, Mary D. Thanks, John. It's great to be able to join you again, especially as you mentioned, we got a great start on 2022, and hopefully we have some positive evolution coming forth that hopefully takes us out of the last couple of years. Anyway, let me introduce myself real quickly. I joined eGain as VP of Engineering a little over a decade ago, and I've had responsibility as VP of Technology as well, and also helped define some new products and some new technologies, possibly even some new business models. So as a result, I get to be our technology evangelist today, and it's actually quite a fun experience because I get to engage in events like this. I get to talk to interesting partners, customers, analysts, and it's a really great way to really see what's going on and actually talk a little bit about eGain. Just FYI, my Twitter handle is Sam Hahn, just my name, SamHahn, if you'd like to tweet about this. And so I'm really going to give you a slightly summarized insight based on what we've seen in the last couple of years. Okay. So I'm going to talk about what we saw in the last few years where CIOs and CTOs really said, hey, we really need to engage with our customers in a digital fashion. Okay. We'll talk about some of the issues they found, and then we'll talk about how to address some of those issues. And then we'll actually make you an offer kind of at the end of my section here. Okay. So as I alluded to just a couple seconds ago, it used to be a very high priority. If you surveyed CTOs and CIOs and said, what do you really want to do for your business? A lot of them were saying for the last 2, 3, 4 years, they needed to engage with their customers on a digital medium. And in fact, as we've seen with COVID and we've seen with some of the shutdowns that we've all experienced over the last 2+ years, this actually was accelerated because no matter who you were, your enterprise probably had a number of backlog items, future items, roadmap items that said, hey, I'm going to put in this digital pipe. I'm going to actually engage using video. I'm going to engage on chat. I'm going to engage with my web self-service channel. I'm going to engage on Facebook or whatever it is. So all of that was on the product enterprise roadmap. And in fact, what COVID has done is it said, hey, can't afford to put this on the roadmap. You got to do it now. And this is starting about 2 years ago, right? We all remember that. And so there was a huge investment. A lot of money got put into all of these channels. But what happened? Okay. So what happened was all of these pipes got laid. You now have a pipe from the agent to the customer, and it's now going through chat, or it's going through email, or it's going through web self-service, or it's going through Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or Apple Business or Amazon or Google. I mean, the number of options available where customers want to engage with the enterprise is tremendous. And it's way beyond just simple chat and email as it was even just a decade ago. But then what did customers experience? Our surveys, and certainly other surveys, corroborated this, were that there was still a high level of customer dissatisfaction with the level of engagement and the engagement experience across some of these new channels. Now, why was that? Well, let's imagine that you had to build a number of pipes in your house. Well, clearly these pipes are going to carry something, right? And you'd rather they carry clean water. You would rather they carry some gems, but you certainly don't want sludge going through there, and you certainly don't want that to be coming out on the other end where you expect somebody to get very clean water. So that's kind of a very rough analogy or a metaphor, in that a lot of investment into the pipes was necessary, but insufficient. Okay. So it resulted in the fact that, hey, this experience just resulted in still a very high number of contact center agents that hate their tools. Now there's just more tools for them to deal with. Also, their knowledge base, their training, the actual things they could say to the customer were still what they were seeing several years ago. The pipes were there. Now they can actually deliver the message in a different way, but the message itself wasn't really changing. And then if you got the customer coming to the web self-service site, again, you're seeing the same problem, right? Self-service was resulting in 90% of them abandoning their journeys on the website because they're saying, this is not really telling me what I need to know. And that's not very good if you're a CIO or a CTO, right? It's definitely a problem. So we actually rushed to add these channels without really looking at what's going through those pipes. And what is going through those pipes? What we really want to go through those pipes is good solutions, good information, good experience, right? Good interactions, good engagement with the agents or whomever is that's participating in that channel. We also saw that if we even had the perspective that, let's say, boomer generations and older folks were quite reticent and reluctant to actually get onto these channels, we found that. But we also found that once they got there, they want to start using these channels more. There's some stickiness to these channels. And from a workplace standpoint, a lot of these people are not coming back. We've all seen this, right? We've all seen that people are now creating a new normal. And it's not just a great resignation where people are looking for better workplace options for themselves. They're actually saying, I'm done. I'm going to retire. And so it's not just a great resignation. I think we heard this term. There's a great retignation, retirement option that's being exercised by a number of the boomers. So Pew has identified, just as I've been alluding to up till now, that really we need to send better content through these pipes. And that means using knowledge, leveraging knowledge, so that what is actually being sent through these pipes and sent on these sessions and experienced through these new channels is high quality. Okay, it doesn't surprise us when you put it in that perspective, but it actually does definitely justify where the next set of investments need to be. So not just we have done this, but Gartner has done this, and I'm sure you've seen other surveys as well. Gartner, quote, knowledge management is the #1 technology that can simultaneously elevate customer, agent, and business experiences in 2022 and beyond. #1, okay? No longer laying pipes. It's all now about really putting good things through the pipes so that the customer experience can be much higher. Now, in a roundtable like this, we don't have a lot of time to talk about the hows, but I do want to talk to you about what can happen if you do pay such attention and put a priority on the knowledge flowing through these channels, and then what that does to the customer experience. Back when I was in a AI program at Stanford, in fact, the term of the day, in fact, it was used by a lot of people in passwords, was in the knowledge lies the power. And I don't know Latin, but I think the concise Latin form of that is scientia potentia est. In the knowledge lies the power. And I think we can attribute that to Thomas Hobbes and others. But what we really know is, and it's always been expressed as garbage in, garbage out, right? So if we focus on making the knowledge high quality and relevant and findable, as John was talking about, then all of a sudden now the agent is happier, the customer is happier, the sessions are shorter, the callbacks are less frequent. And so I'm just going to give you a few examples of that. Here's one example where we've got 30,000 contact centers in a global telco with over 5,000 store associates. When they converted to using a knowledge hub, which actually put relevant knowledge in the relevant sessions, prioritized appropriately so that the agent had easy access to it and the customer had easy access to it on their web self-service sections, here's the kind of results you can see. For example, you can actually see that the first contact resolution improvement goes up by 35%. Not only is that a good number, but what that results in is obviously the return calls and dissatisfied calls and the bad survey results. Those of you that invest in Net Promoter System, otherwise known as Net Promoter Score, know how hard it is to even reach single-digit improvements in Net Promoter numbers. But what if you could actually get 25 absolute value points in NPS improvement? That's worth millions, sometimes tens of millions to some of these large organizations. Because when you see your customer base become champions for you, all of a sudden the agent's happier, the business is happier, customers are happier, business is growing. And look at the next sort of things. If you can take 50% of the investment out of your training time so that you can actually get new agents competent in half the time, because they're learning the simple techniques of a platform. They're not actually having to go through lots of detailed documentation about all the plethora of products that you're coming up with every year. They're just learning how to interact with your knowledge management system, which has been carefully crafted so that all this new information is immediately at their fingertips. So in this particular case, we had an investment that clearly was justified because of these numbers at the scale that this company was operating in. Okay. Now, the next example I'm going to give you here is a government agency, very large government agency. Oh, in fact, we even cite them. This is the IRS. And so they decided to work with us only, half a decade ago. And they were seeing improvements in the average handle time that were just tremendous, right? How would you like to wait 28 minutes for the next agent to actually get with you? And there were 20 million unanswered calls every year, okay? So what they were able to do was now they put some smart deflection while people were waiting in their IVR system, and 70% of these offers were actually accepted. So now, rather than waiting on a phone call, you could actually then engage with them with a virtual assistant and start addressing their issue without them waiting that 28 minutes. The agent engagement also was able to then improve them to about 92nd percentile, where previously they were at about 67 percentile. And this is actually documented survey result. Also, they saw a 25% reduction in just the amount of time required in order to just handle each issue from every customer. And now you've got 4x, 400%, is that 5x? Yeah, 5x, more taxpayer services per hour using knowledge as compared to what they were doing before. Those are huge changes, especially at the scale that the IRS operates. Here's another example of a health insurance form. Okay, here's an example where if you look at what's going through the pipes, you saw a number of agents that had to then stop going to the retail center, and they were repurposed in a sense, so they were actually having to work remotely. And they were able to achieve this with a good knowledge management system without impacting their performance metrics. They're also able to see 33% reduction in the agent training time. This all happens when you pay very careful attention to how you set up the knowledge, how you actually make sure that it's relevant, in context, and then immediately and quickly accessible. This is an organization that handles 5 million healthcare customers. Imagine what these 33% reduction actually does to your absolute costs. And here's the direct quote. All my agents love eGain's knowledge. It's super efficient, easy to utilize, single source of truth. I use it daily. By the way, that's another point I want to focus on, is that if we are actually able to have agents adopt the interaction process and actually make sure that they're compliant with what our system is helping them do, all of a sudden your auditability goes way up. And your percentage of sessions that are not compliant with regulations goes way down. This is one of the interesting things we've seen, that you don't go into it necessarily thinking that, but it's a huge benefit. So one of the things that we want to make is an offer, okay, in that we don't have a lot of time in Roundtable, as I mentioned right now, for us to spend talking about exactly how we do this. But if you'd like to engage, we would like to take all the risk and make sure that we give you an offer that says, hey, we're going to go look through your website. We're going to crawl it a little bit. We're going to take a look at some of your top anticipated use cases, and we're going to show you off the shelf what your customer experience could be if you utilized our knowledge management solution. If we actually just, even in less than 4 weeks, just take a look at what we could do just on our own with no risk to you. This means no cost to you. All it takes is a few phone calls. All we just need is a few phone calls from you to say, yes, I'd like to take a look at this and show me what you can do. Okay. So this we call our Innovation in 30 Days program. It says all the onus is on us. We take all the risk. We put in all the work. You just take a look at the customer experience once we're done with this. We'll show you interim milestone results at 2, 3, and 4 weeks. And within a month, you can actually see the power of what a well-crafted, mature knowledge management solution could do for your business and for your customers. So I just want to say, this little saying about knowledge is power truly can be revolutionary to your business if done the right way. Take a perspective where it says you're going to begin, you're going to nurture, you're going to grow, you're going to improve, you're going to then learn. It's a learning mindset. And if you do, and you really choose to do it, we will make it actually quite easy for you. And that is our goal in life, is to help make it effective and easy for you to basically leverage all of this stuff you've been hearing. Thank you. Back to you, Mary D.
Thank you, Sam. And now let me pass the event to Scott Littman, Managing Partner, Lucy.
Thank you very much. Hi, Scott Littman, co-founder of Lucy. My personal background is over the last 20 plus years, I've been an entrepreneur in marketing services and technology. I've had the good fortune to work with about 25% of the Fortune 500 on the adoption of new technology. And part of that is always, that the need to spot and understand trends as they're happening and understand how to apply them to the workplace. Now, we started this journey with Lucy about 6 years ago, and our product is now in its 3rd generation. We have 4 patents that have been issued, well over 100,000 people hours of development time, and we're at some amazing Fortune 500 businesses with many, many, many thousands of users using the platform. And so from that, I want to share just a little bit about our journey and what we see as the trends ahead. And so we'll start with the first thing is, this is all about knowledge management. But part of the dialogue is even what is knowledge? When we got started, we looked at it and said, if we could unlock the potential of all of the documents that exist in the enterprise, we'd hear people say things like, I can't find anything on SharePoint. And we'd see inefficiencies at how people would tap the knowledge that's in documents. And we thought, well, we'll build a solution that is going to leverage, automation of data ingestion across all sorts of internal data and with AI to really make a great knowledge management system. But one of the things we started to realize is that view of knowledge in itself has its own limits. Like there's tons of value locked up in documents. But I started to talk to a friend of mine, Christy Zulke, who founded Knowledge Hound. And their focus was respondent level marketing data. And that's a form of knowledge in the enterprise. And then we start to think about all of the vendors providing syndicated data or licensed data. And whether it's, Insider Intelligence's eMarketer or the Mintels or Euromonitors or any of the, third-party research companies. And that's a form of knowledge as well. It's just licensed knowledge. And then we start to think about the knowledge that exists in conversations. And the conversational side of knowledge, we look at the world of tools like the Power BIs and Tableaus that have data visualization around all of the numeric data. And so one of the things is, just as we have this conversation about knowledge management, as we think about the upcoming trends, is just having that picture on, what even are we talking about for knowledge? And so, from our view, one of the things is, how do you stitch all of this stuff together? What's the glue that binds it? In our case, our Lucy solution sits on top of all these kinds of best of breed solutions and files and things like that to bring knowledge together. So if we think about the trends side of what's next, we've identified just 3 basic trends, and we'll chat about them for a few minutes here. The first trend is around the idea of AI becoming the new subject matter expert. And important to say, not replacing subject matter expertise, but being a form of subject matter expertise. And one of the things that we notice is, we are constantly interviewing customers and or soon to be customers. One of the things that we do is we go through persona modeling sessions to make sure that if we're going to be deploying knowledge management, we know the DNA of the people we're deploying to. What are their needs? Where does data live? What are the pain points they have? And one of the things that we see as common is that the way that people get information, one of the common ways that people get information in the enterprise today, in effect, a form of a search engine, is to ask the subject matter experts. And they go to, they might send emails or texts, but more typically they're on Teams or Slack. And it's kind of like Teams or Slack has become a form of knowledge gathering and a bit of a search engine in that way. And if you're the SME, it's a problem, because the SMEs will tell us in their interviews, they'll say, can somebody help stop the bad questions? And to the SMEs, they're there providing a ton of value in what they do. But every time somebody asks a question of them and says, hey, I just need 5 minutes, it's a 30-minute interruption, and it's highly disruptive. And so one of the opportunities is if all of the various forms of knowledge that people are working on are being bound together, then what we end up seeing is that we can use the AI to play a frontline role in subject matter expertise. That the first question can go to the AI that's connected to all this data, and it can ideally answer a great many of the questions before they get to the SMEs. And that by the time we go to the SME, it's for the higher level function. And so, one of the tactics that we're seeing commonly is that one of the things that we're seeing commonly is that the people that are SMEs play a frontline role in edifying the knowledge management, saying, before you ask me, ask the knowledge management system, see if you can get your answer there. And so one of the trends we see in 2022 is these AI knowledge management systems playing a leading role and being the frontline SME to the organization. Now, the next trend, and we're inheriting a trend, which is the incredible amount of work from home that has happened over the pandemic. And realistically, I think we're hopefully seeing a light at the end of the tunnel to start seeing that maybe we'd be part-time back in offices or more and more back into offices. But what has happened with all of the support for work from home has driven the need to make data available to people wherever they are. And whether wherever they are is multi-office and geography, or whether it's supporting people that are part-time or full-time working remotely. And so what we're seeing is that there's going to be, that because there has been so much work from home, so because there's been so much investment in automation and in the democratization of data, that we're now seeing the realization of this, which is that businesses are finding ways to take data that was once siloed, and siloed either because of product, business unit, team, geography, structure, that we're creating more data access, so that whether I'm simply remote that day, whether I'm traveling, whether I'm working from home, that the ability to be able to have the full complement of the data that a business owns or licenses would be available. And then the next trend we're seeing is the emergence of going from innovation to business justification. And when I think of the earlier waves of AI and knowledge management, much of it was led by one of two key sources, either innovation efforts within the enterprise or visionary executive leadership. In those cases, it's easy to point out and say that we ought to do this because, innovation team is citing a trend, or a leader is making a visionary statement that we should democratize data. We should invest in AI. We should do these things to what appears to be the obvious benefit. But there's a different thing as you move beyond the mavericks and innovators and leading edge. When you start getting to the mainstream of all this, you're not going to have enough of those mavericks and innovators and visionaries to drive it. You start to go into the mainstream, and there's the core need for business justification. And one of the things that we see a great deal is people saying, I'm just not quite sure how I'm going to articulate the benefit. Like, it seems obvious we should unlock this data. It seems obvious that we should drive efficiency and have people spend less time searching for things. It seems clear that we might have redundant efforts that exist because people are unaware of what others have done. But the trend we're seeing this year is the need to drive the business justification and to be able to articulate it around a clear understanding of benefit to the business and ROI. And so on this slide, we have just one simplistic example. But looking at a large enterprise, looking at, if we were to have 1,500 people saving just a couple of hours a week because of efficiency, the value that happens from that. And so this is just a super easy example, but it ends up equating to millions of dollars, 75, FTEs. And so one of the things that we do is, and I mentioned earlier that, we kind of start with we'll do persona modeling and get into the DNA of the users. We oftentimes use that to drive ROI discussions. And the ROI discussions based on the persona, they might take the form of how are we going to drive efficiency? How are we going to save time? How are we going to reduce redundancy? How are we going to get more value out of investments into prior data, whether it's owned or licensed? And we have different models that we work with customers on for how can we support that business justification? How do we understand and how can we articulate the ROI? Because the reality is that knowledge management, like any other major technology initiative, is going to be just one idea that's in the queue. And businesses can only focus and prioritize on so many new initiatives at once. They only have not just capital that fits into budgets, but also people time to drive these things. And so without proper business justifications, without getting beyond vision and innovation, getting to we will do this to save X time. We will do this to drive this efficiency to allow people to do more in less time. We're doing this to stop redundancy. Without that, it's hard to prioritize these efforts. And so moving from vision to clearly articulated business justification is something that's going to be really a core part of the year. So those are the three trends that we see. From our side, we'll say that, Lucy is looking to get hired at more and more businesses. And if you're curious to learn more about any of these trends or to learn about Lucy, visit lucy.ai, schedule your interview with her, and we would love to chat with you. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. And now for some questions from our viewers. Let's see. Let me start with this one for John. How have you seen document sentiments used in a practical setting?
Okay, documents sentiment analysis. Yeah, well, the text analysis field has included this for many years. For example, reading thousands of comments after people leave their hotel and write in. And after the fact, they just are able to get a determination per hotel how they're doing. You may be familiar with Boeing 737 MAX project. I'm guessing you've heard of that. And we know some knowledge management people that when the documents and emails were released after the project, were able to do a lot of analysis across those as well, and found that the emails going between Boeing and FAA had a positive sentiment, and within the project team, the project documents had a pretty low sentiment. And so, some estimates are that half the large projects initiatives fail anyway. So really by bringing this capability into search instead of after the fact analysis, there's opportunities with project documents to provide an early warning system for large projects by using this type of capability.
That's a good example. Here's a question for Sam. This person wants an example of a knowledge management use case outside of the contact center. So that's what you were talking about, and he'd like to know something that's not just contact center.
Okay, good. It actually turns out that this is one of the things that we're pretty happy about, because when we introduced our product, our services into a contact center, and the company itself finds out how easy it is for them to take it on and take responsibility, we're finding two areas, at least two areas, where customers have said, "Hey, we could use this in other departments." So one is in HR. They can actually go and actually find out, "Hey, what are my um, regulations, we're going to find the right kind of information, where are the right compliance guidelines, where's my tax information, this sort of thing." And it's very easy to set up. And it definitely frees up HR staff. Another one is on the IT desk, IT help desk. So we're finding that, hey, where's my PC, or how come my network is wonky, or whatever. Those may be small projects, but those are actually easy projects for companies to actually take on, because once they've got it in-house, once they know how easy it is to look at um, understanding intent, understanding what the right, high confidence solution is, and how to escalate when your confidence is low, that will all contribute to making a good customer experience and another whole domain for application.
Yeah. I would think that some of those questions would have become more relevant during the pandemic when people were working from home.
That's where we've actually seen it. Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Scott, is there a particular type of organization or team that is better suited for knowledge management?
So, the more people and the more data that an organization has, the harder it is for any one person to know everything that's there. We certainly have seen certain use cases around things like research and insights, which ultimately are supporting leadership, marketing, and sales has been a very common one. But we're also seeing everything from IT teams trying to support applications that were built by contractors and developers years ago, where the knowledge is, everything in Jira, GitHub, and Confluence. And we see in sales enablement, salespeople and sales support people that are putting together proposals and responses to customers, particularly in B2B, needing to be able to, tap into the well that's, white papers, case studies, sales collateral, and all of that. And then anything where there's employee transition, new hires coming in, M&A, restructurings, where you've got people moving around, where they have job responsibilities that rely on data that existed before they were there. You buy a company, well, you're inheriting all of its data, but you've got a lot of employees that have never seen any of it. So all of these are places where this kind of AI and knowledge management plays a very strong role.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay. This is a question for John, but I think the other two may want to have an opinion on it. So how well does SearchBlox work out of the box for an organization that hasn't tagged a lot and has material all over the place, which I would assume is not unique to this particular organization? So, John, why don't you start?
Okay, yeah, I think that my colleagues would agree that this is not a unique situation. What we normally find is that organizations have not tagged their content, and that they have it all over the place, some internal and some in silos outside the organization on the cloud, and they all want one search box. And with one search box to be able to pull it all together and, of course, find it, because it's automatically being tagged. So don't feel too bad. You're actually in a normal organization.
Okay, Sam, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, John's definitely correct. But one of the things that we like to highlight is that the better you do, the simpler, obviously, it is for the customer experience. So by better, what I mean is the more of these silos that John referenced as places where you previously had to go and separately issue a query, if you can bring all of those together and just have the customer or the agent just ask one time, and then have the platform, the knowledge management hooks and tendrils reach into exactly the right places, put everything in context, you can basically see it, because like we all know, the Google beauty of their search bar is it's so simple. just ask one place.
Yeah.
And then it does all the smart reasoning behind it to give you, is it an FAQ? Is it an article? Is it an automated bot response? Is it a process that I have to go through? And just making it very simple and having the system just correctly categorize the kind of responses, prioritize it for you, and give it to you, as a set of very simple things to follow up with. Um, yeah, I may have said too much already, but I think that's where we actually can de-silo a number of these things
Yeah.
and make it very simple from a customer experience standpoint.
Yeah. Scott? Scott, you might be muted.
Sorry. No, I'm there. So if you can repeat the question, please.
This was about an organization that has material all over the place and hasn't tagged very much. And how well can you handle that?
Yeah. So that's the normal is state that we inherit, and it's what we expect. And one of the things that we really view as being important is that if people have to go in and groom the data, if they have to get hands-on and figure out which are the good files and which are the bad ones, when you're dealing with organizations with millions of pages of content, it's just too much overhead and work. And as much as garbage in, garbage out is true, what we have to be able to do is automate data ingestion and, to a certain degree, let the combination of users' questions and the AI's answers sort it out. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that every answer is going to be brilliant. We're going to provide, we provide, the top 10 answers, and people will give feedback and say, well, that's a terrible answer, but that's a great answer. That's a great answer. That's really good. And it's so much easier to let the users quickly see the answers to their questions and kind of grade them and provide feedback that makes the system smarter against a large mass of pretty messy data than to try to super organize it and clean it up and manage it, because it's just too much. And by the way, the data grows by the day. If you have this huge effort to clean it up now, you're only going to have more data tomorrow anyways. So we use the rules of automation, and we use the system to allow us to bring in that whole mess and make it usable.
Whole mess. Okay. Another question here. This actually was aimed at you, Scott, but I think this is one that I think the other two will want to chime in on. You were talking about ROI, and this person wants to know, is saving time the main ROI that businesses find from these systems, or is there something else?
Yeah.
So Scott, why don't you start?
Yeah, I'll lead off. And, we've created ROI models for saving time and efficiency, but also another really big one is redundancy. Imagine, we work with, think about retailers, think about CPGs, think about auto companies, think of communications companies. In each case, they have audiences that they have studied again and again and again. And yet they're going to study that audience in the future. They're going to hire a firm to analyze that audience, and maybe they already have it. So redundancy is a really big solve for ROI. So yes, efficiency or saving time is one measure, but redundancy is another one. And then the other is just extracting value from data. Think about the subscriptions, the fees that go to the giant research companies like the IDCs and Insider Intelligence and eMarketer. They have awesome data, but if too few people use it, that becomes a problem. But if you can make that data available, there's a value there as well. If only 5% of your people use it today, but through a system that democratizes data, you can make it available to 20%, 30%, 50%, you're extending the value of those subscriptions or investments in data. So there's other ways beyond just efficiency.
Sam, what's eGain's take on ROI?
Well, if I may, I'm going to just quickly highlight one or two or three of my slides where we actually do try to get very clear on some of these ROIs. So, whether you value time or whether you value money or whether you value customer sat or whether you value just, people, that's one of the things that I really want to make sure that we understand is that across the board, we're looking at, different companies have different metrics that they really want to measure success with. And let me just spend a little bit of time about people. It used to be the case that, experts were hard to come by, right? So you had SMEs that over decades grew their experience, and then they became very valuable, and the company couldn't afford to get rid of them. The recent trend, and this is a multi-year trend, has been that, hey, if you start from data and you actually apply machine learning and you extract information and you actually then encode it in knowledge, there's this underlying implication that you could actually not be so dependent on your SMEs. I don't think that's really true. I think that what we really want is a hybrid approach. We're still able to do this. So I think just looking at whether or not you've got SMEs going out the door and being able to just retain some of their information, that's one of the key things that's not very much acknowledged, and yet it's still part of the ROI. But I just want to say these 3 slides here, and we have many others, are how we've looked across the industry and across our experience in just answering some of these ROI questions. Okay.
John, what about ROI at SearchBlox?
Yeah, a great question. I think certainly we've been talking about saving time, and that certainly relates to salaries of everyone that's in an organization that's doing nothing other than looking for an answer. But saving time is also part of project criticality and short deadlines, depending on the type of organization you work in, where time is of the essence. It's not just saving time, but when people can't find it, if you've ever walked in a call center, seen a whole bunch of little yellow stickies all around every monitor, people start relying on their older knowledge that's probably been obsolete for a while, but they know they can find it there. So you get a consistency in the decisions and actions that the organization are involved in when people know that they can rely in finding it. You also learn from your customers and your audience base. It's amazing to find out how much marketing departments spend on focus groups and surveys, that all you need to do is look through the search logs and sometimes and find this is what they're calling it. This is what they're asking us if we already have. You can learn from your audience. You can learn from your team. What do we already have? What do we already know? Why are we reinventing the wheel? If you are able to find what knowledge is already in the organization. So mitigating calls, also a big part of ROI, whether for service or sales. So that's just a short list.
Okay, great. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions today. We apologize that we were unable to get to all your questions, but as I stated earlier, all questions will be answered via email. I would like to thank our speakers today: John Lewis, Chief Knowledge Officer, SearchBlox Software, Inc., Sam Hahn, Technology Evangelist, eGain, Scott Littman, Managing Partner, Lucy. If you would like to review this event or send it to a colleague, please use the same URL that you used for today's event. It will be archived for 90 days. Plus, you will receive an email with the URL to view the webinar once the archive is posted. And just for participating in today's event, you could win this $100 Amazon card. The winner will be announced on February 28th. We will reach out via email if you are selected as this month's winner. Thank you again for joining us.